Chapter 23. Lily felt herself being pulled into a tear in reality. As the rift closed behind her with a loud snap, it felt like a monstrous mouth devouring her whole, throwing her into a dizzying storm of lights. Pain shot through her, but her anger and embarrassment kept her alert. She had accepted Dimitri's coin to get rid of the prince, but of course, that pesky old archmage had to mess everything up. Now, all she had to do was complete the mission and finally shake off this migraine of a situation. This rift in space felt like a rough, chaotic version of the teleportation spells she occasionally used. She'd never gone through anything so wild and unpolished, but in her eagerness, she dove right in. She braced herself for the sudden thump of solid ground, ready to continue her search, but something didn't feel right. The emptiness began to warp around her, and she felt increasingly disoriented, diving into something deeper and more frightening. The bright, shimmering colors faded away, replaced by a heavy, impenetrable darkness that felt endless and suffocating. It was a chilling realization that sank into her core. She felt as though she was being drawn in. Her essence felt as if it was being stretched, coming apart one fragile thread at a time. An ancient cosmic presence surged into Lily's mind, not with words, but as a massive wave of intent that felt almost too much to bear. It was so vast that it threatened to shatter her grip on reality. Lily instinctively pulled back, her instincts as a beast woman kicking in as she felt herself overwhelmed, like a small stone tossed into a mighty ocean. This was something whose sheer enormity was beyond anything she could really understand. She suddenly sensed a presence so incredibly vast that it stretched across the entire horizon of eyesight. It felt like standing next to the moon in terms of its immense size. Its ancient eyes, which resembled swirling galaxies full of nebulae and fading stars, turned toward her slowly and menacingly. Lily, an assassin who had faced countless deadly situations without blinking, suddenly found herself overtaken by a deep primal fear. She attempted to confront it, to stand her ground, but her body wouldn't cooperate and rebelled against her. The immense crushing force emanating from its massive figure was overwhelming. Her stomach turned violently, and she collapsed to her knees, sickened as vomit spilled into the dark, cosmic floor. In that moment, her pride, her strength, and her very essence crumbled under that unstoppable power. A voice echoed in her thoughts, like a command born from the quiet of space and the fading cries of countless dying stars.
You are not the vessel.
The thought was sneer and dismissive.
A mere pest, but potentially useful.
Lily's thoughts swirled in confusion. Vessel? A hazy recollection flickered to mind, snatches of hushed conversations from years past, clawing to break free. Stories of the archmage locked in combat with a formidable beast. It couldn't be. This was the same monster responsible for the curse that tainted the prince with that wretched source of crazy mana.
You'll deliver them to me.
The cosmic dragon's words hit her like a thunderclap, almost breaking her will. The order was clear and unyielding.
Feel free to dispose of the old fool. But know this, the prince is mine, just as you are.
I don't belong.
Lily started to shout in rebellion before being overwhelmed in a searing, excruciating pain lanced through Lily's mind, a violation more profound than any physical torture. Her will, her very essence, cracked as she fought desperately, but it was futile. The dragon's cold and invasive presence seeped into her, claiming her, bending her to its absolute command. Every defiant spark within her was scoured clean, replaced by the chilling, crystalline clarity of its will. As the dragon's will solidified within her, a cold alien power surged. Threads of primal mana, not her own, weaving into her being. She felt the distant hum of other worlds, saw pathways through reality she never knew existed. The dragon's will crushed her, not with physical force, but with a torrent of searing, agonizing memories that weren't her own. Its psychic presence surged into her, invading her mind and body. She saw images in a terrifying, chaotic flash. Countless worlds imploded. Lily's mind was assaulted by rapid, brutal flashes, a vibrant, bustling planet teeming with mana, then its very essence ripped away, like skin and meat ripped from bone. Cities crumbled into dust as the ground dissolved. Oceans boiled to vapor. The mana, the life, the very fabric of existence on these worlds was consumed, leaving behind only desolate, fractured husks, drifting in an inky void, the echoes of their silent deaths reverberating through her invaded consciousness. The city of Thesian appeared in her mind, pristine and beautiful. Then the vision shifted. A different scene, violently familiar. The city of Thesian now in ruins, and Nicholas was younger perhaps, but undeniably him. He stood against the cosmic dragon, a desperate, defiant point of light, against a titanic shadow that stretched across the urban sprawl. Magic exploded, raw and desperate. Nicholas fought not for victory, but to cast it out, to seal the dragon away from his realm. Rage, not her own, flared through Lily, the dragon's own fury at Nicholas's interference, to be thwarted by a mortal mage. The dragon's colossal form recoiling, shrieking in silent fury as it was ripped from that realm. A tiny fragment of its soul left behind as a curse on the boy, Dante, in a final act of spite. From the swirling depths of the cosmic realm, grotesque forms began to coalesce around her. Creatures woven from shadow and nightmare, hulking beasts with too many limbs, lithe figures with glowing eyes, beings from countless worlds that had fallen under the dragon's influence. They were her new silent and obedient company that awaited her command. The cosmic dragon's influence permeated her, cold and absolute. Lily, who was once a proud assassin, was now a chained beast. She felt a shimmering tear form in the vastness before her. It was no longer her choice. It was the dragon's command. Her luminous eyes, tinged with a faint cosmic glow, looked at the shimmering rift. The order of the cosmic dragon echoed through her enslaved mind. Her hunt was no longer just a job, but her only purpose for living. With a purposeful stride, Lily was accompanied by her gang of different species of minions and vanished into the portal. She was like a loyal hound, sent forth by a power beyond mortal comprehension. Dante plummeted into a dizzying tumble through a kaleidoscope of fractured light and sound. His thoughts, still reeling from the anguish of Nicholas's tragic injury, were swept away by a sudden, chaotic portal that erupted into existence. The sensation was unlike anything he had ever experienced, a disorienting turmoil that pulled at him from every conceivable angle. The air thickened around him, pressing in with a weight that felt almost alive, while a sharp, biting fear clawed at the edges of his mind, threatening to engulf him entirely. Then, with a bone-jarring impact that sent a fresh wave of agony through his already tired body, the maelstrom vanished. He landed hard on something cold and unyielding, a surface that rattled violently beneath him. The air was thick with a strange, acrid smell. A sharp, burnt aroma mingled with something strange and pungent, unlike any scent he knew from Thesian. The deafening roar of the dimensional tear was replaced by a rhythmic, metallic clang-hiss-clatter, a monstrous symphony of incomprehensible sounds beneath and around him. Dante groaned, pushing himself up on trembling arms. He found himself on a flat, grimy metal platform, at the very end of what appeared to be a colossal, elongated structure. It moved, impossibly fast, the ground a blur beneath it. Great plumes of black, oily smoke billowed from massive, ornate chimneys further along its length, choking the sky with unnatural clouds. Intricate webs of metal pipes pulsed with a strange, glowing blue liquid, hissing with an internal pressure that made the entire contraption shudder. Wheels, huge and numerous, spun with dizzying speed below. He stared, utterly bewildered. He had read of carriages and wagons, drawn by beasts or men, but this was a beast made of metal, fire, and a strange, luminous fluid. It had no legs, no discernible motive force he understood. What is this thing? He wondered. his mind struggling to categorize this alien technology. He knew little to nothing of gears, pulleys, or the concept of steam that drove such colossal constructs. He was a prince, tutored in history, languages of other races, ancient lore, and the intricate workings of magic. He had spent his life within the castle walls, navigating court politics and dusty tomes, not the mechanical marvels of an unknown world. His understanding of the wider world was entirely based on his studies and Nicholas's wisdom. Without his grandfather, the world was a terrifying, incomprehensible place. A chilling reminder settled over him. He was alone. Nicholas, if he had even survived the lethal blow and the fall, was somewhere in this bewildering world. But Dante had no idea where. He was utterly cut off, flung into an alien landscape where the very air felt devoid of the familiar thrum of ambient magic. His immense mana well felt isolated. He felt little to no mana outside his body that he took for granted around him. A sudden, sharp clang overhead ripped him from his bewildered observations. He walked over and peered out the opening, seeing a vast desert surrounding, and a blaring heat wave woke him from his confusion. He suddenly noticed multiple smaller metal flying creatures hovering next to the metal beast he was on. Men rode on top these metal beasts, and they wielded strange, compact devices that looked like intricate, metallic crossbows.
"These must be bandits,"
Dante said under his breath. These figures were clad in dark garments and covered their face with masks and goggles. They looked human enough, so maybe he could understand them, he wondered. They got close and dropped onto the top of the metal beast. Dante swiftly darted away from the opening and took cover around a corner. A deafening crash echoed overhead, and before long, the top was revealed, giving them the chance to leap inside.
"Ha snarl,"
one bandit said.
"Cathar. Gurch.
Another bandit said, pointing forward.
Naya. Ga. Ga."
One bandit slapped the first bandit and pointed to the ground. They shouted commands at one another in a chaotic mix of rough, snarling sounds that were completely lost on Dante. While he heard the commotion, he couldn't make sense of the words. They were simply a jumble of aggressive, menacing noise. Without hesitation, they all surged ahead into the next room. All but one ran forward, moving into the next room. The figure stayed behind, pacing, and Dante tried to scramble over behind some large black containers.
"Rock!"
Suddenly, a shout reverberated through the space, the words lost in a jumble, yet the menacing vibe was unmistakable. Dante cautiously peeked around the container, locking eyes with a man who was fixedly staring at him. Dante wasn't exactly the stealthiest fellow, so all he could do was cross his fingers that he hadn't been noticed, but it seemed his wishes were in vain. The man, a hefty figure glistening with sweat, featuring a curly mustache, clad in leather and peculiar robes, with a mask and goggles pushed back on his forehead, had definitely zeroed in on Dante and was slowly approaching. With a threatening flick, he lifted one of those bizarre, resonant tubes.
"Wardol Rara!"
His shout pierced the air, his face twisted in a mask of fury. Dante's instincts kicked into high gear. Though he didn't grasp the words being said, the meaning was unmistakable. A desire to kill. His emotions swirled with his mana and erupted in a wild blast. Rather than trying to rein it in or hold back, he let loose a raw wave of force, like an unseen hammer striking down upon the hefty robber. The man gasped in shock, flailing like a fish out of water, as he was suddenly yanked off the ground and sent tumbling backwards, crashing awkwardly onto the metal roof, his peculiar weapon skittering away into harmlessness. Just then, a new figure appeared from the opening up above, moving towards Dante with a confidence that spoke of authority, even without understanding her words. This woman was a striking and intimidating figure. Her skin was an unnatural ashen gray, and her eyes, vibrant and glowing, were a shocking shade of orange that seemed like they could pierce through the dusty desert air. Her long white hair fell in loose, tousled layers around her face, partially tucked beneath a wide-brimmed brown hat, adorned with brass goggles and a gleaming gold star emblem. She wore a high-collared brown cloak with gold trim and a series of decorative clasps down the front, giving her the air of a seasoned traveler or a hardened warrior. A matching face covering obscured the lower half of her face with bottom silver tusks, adding to her mystery. Dante figured this offered protection from the harsh elements outside. Her left hand was a marvel of craftsmanship, a metal hand unlike anything Dante had ever seen before. He has heard and read in text about limb replacements, but this looked unworldly. Her right hand gripped a long cylinder object with a piece of glass on top. She held a steady and confident demeanor, suggesting she was no stranger to combat.
Yes! Grrrch!
She shouted something, her voice cutting through the rumble of the metal beast, a torrent of unintelligible commands. She took aim and fired with pinpoint accuracy, the shot ringing out with a loud crack, sending a burst of sparks toward the bandit. He had been getting up, but before he could even reach his feet, he collapsed lifelessly to the ground. She then spotted Dante, lingering close to the subdued bandit, a barely there hint of leftover magic hovering around him. Her orange eyes narrowed, filled with an immediate and profound suspicion. There was something about him she recognized, a spark of power that sent an unsettling chill down her spine, even though her recollections of the past were scattered and elusive. She had no clue who this boy was, yet the quiet energy emanating from him triggered all of her instincts, a deep-rooted warning she couldn't quite put into words. The woman stepped forward, her strange weapon leveling slightly at Dante, her body language conveying an unmistakable threat.
Guitar! Hum!
She started talking in weird words again and seemed to be getting more frustrated. Dante stared back with his mind reeling. He didn't understand her words, only the sharp, authoritative tone and the menacing posture. He tried to speak, tried to explain his confusion, but his own words, the elven tongue and the human common, were just as foreign, just as meaningless to this stranger.
Hey, what do you want? Why are you staring at me?
He was just making a garbled, confused plea, gesturing helplessly around him, indicating his complete lack of comprehension. The woman's orange eyes hardened. She clearly wasn't understanding, or perhaps wasn't buying whatever she thought he was trying to convey. The metal beast rumbled onward, while all they could do was stare at each other. She merely tilted her head slightly as her gaze hardened. Without a word, she moved with surprising speed. Before Dante could react, she was upon him. Her left mechanical hand shot out like a piston, clamping onto his arm with an iron grip. Then, with a surprising ease that contrasted her slender build, she pulled him toward her, hoisting him off the ground as if he were nothing more than a feather. Dante inhaled sharply, taken aback by the sudden rough grip. His magic flared up instinctively, but just as he was about to let loose another chaotic surge, her right hand darted forward. He felt something cold and metallic latch around his wrist. Peering down in confusion, he saw two thick, intricately designed cuffs made of dark polished metal snap shut around both wrists, entangling him tightly. They felt clunky and heavy, leaving him utterly perplexed.
What the hell?
For a brief moment, he thrashed in her hold, then was lowered down, his feet barely grazing the rattling ground beneath him. He looked from the strange cuffs to her face, his brow furrowed in utter bewilderment. His mind, accustomed to the structured justice of his homeland, could only arrive at one conclusion. She thought he was one of these bad men. She thought he was a bandit? Why? He had just helped disarm one of them. The injustice burned, even as confusion swam in his head.
I am not.
Dante stammered, his words still meaningless sounds to her, but his frustration was evident in his tone. In his desperation to make her understand and plead his innocence, he reached out his cuffed hands, grabbing instinctively at her right arm. The instant his fingers made contact with her skin, an electric shock surged through her. Images, fragmented and dreamlike, flashed through her mind, a massive, serpentine form against a colorful sky backdrop, the crushing pressure of a dimensional shift, a face she couldn't remember but loved dearly, and the echo of old familiar language. her vision blurred for a split second, a searing headache lancing through her skull. Then, as suddenly as it began, it receded. Her eyes focused on Dante, but this time the sounds emanating from his lips were no longer gibberish. They were clear. He was speaking, asking why she thought he was bad, why she had captured him. A wave of dizzying disbelief washed over the woman.
You!
She declared, her voice sharp and resonant, laced with a mix of concern and irritation.
What are you? And what did you do to my mind? You pose a danger. A massive danger to everyone on this train.
Her striking orange eyes glinted with a hardened resolve, like someone who had encountered a volatile force. There was nothing else like him that she knew of, and the unfamiliar is often the most feared. She was convinced that the best approach to handle this was to take him to her superiors for interrogation. Dante finally grasped the weight of her words.
I'm not a threat.
He stuttered, his thoughts racing to find a way out of this predicament. They had finally understood each other's words, yet she seemed to have lost her patience for further conversation.